Why do cats sit on their owner's lap?
They could be anywhere else in the world, catching mice,
Having adventures,
maybe even making friends with their own kind.
However, they make an active decision not to only remain in the house,
which provides them with food, drink, and warmth.
but to sit upon your lap.
To share not only bodily heat, but also feelings and emotions that transcend description.
It's a wonderful thing to consider.
It strikes me how similar the limitations of the module are to the actions of a cat.
Emotional rejection.
By revealing oneself through the classroom viewing of the film.
Emotional rejection. Say if the owner was to push him or her away.
Second similarity, first film.
What is Europe?
And cats is
Intense debate stems from the size of the topics.
Cats have been huge figures.
Sex
plays quite a significant role in most of our lives.
Europe in
Logistics, elements,
wood, cement,
nature, money, etc.
Shoot close up
Print these photos
and show them on an overhead projector, burning them.
Animate a still image.
The plan morphed that.
Idea to literally
This didn't make sense to me.
focus on one or two particular subjects.
Would not give a full answer to the question, but might give perspective. The 4 areas I considered:
War, food, landscape and
sex.
landscape and food is compatible with
War is not funny.
how it's commented upon and
Can be.
feel that a lack of sincerity,
Perhaps unwitting,
apparent to myself at least,
had the idea of satirically
muddying the distinctions of love, sex and
pornography.
I intended to craft a film that mixed childhood naivety with an adult topic in the hope that
Meshing the two would provide a commentary on how a generation looks at sex. When sex is involved, everything else seems to be forgotten.
most proven in class with the love section.
While I accept that I have a dry humour, I was quite taken aback to the reactions,
Some people are comfortable to parade images of war.
but angered by pornographic images.
I post the film on both my personal and module YouTube channels.
Facebook and Twitter, and garnered 48 views altogether.
I decided my next one should be serious so that I could not be accused of having a lack of respect for the audience.
The nature of the question was complex.
Was my home Camberwell or Woolston?
In Camberwell, the problems are systematic, problems that occur in cities all over the world.
Yet the concerns in my small village weren't of an exclusively local matter.
Things like family breakdown, generational differences, and heartache are just as global. This led me to change the definition of local concern in my own head.
Small ideas that are global.
The obvious one for me to start with was vegetarianism.
Which is a concern I feel most strongly about.
Because I don't understand why so little people choose to take it up, when it is so simple.
Process and product become the theme.
A provocative truth that could not be argued against.
Expanding my idea, I included technology and oil.
I saw the film as metaphorically resembling a pendulum, swinging back and forth between products and method of production. There have been articles on the internet about a riot at the Foxconn factory in China.
The original iPod commercial.
The advert took on a whole new meaning, with the blacked out bodies dancing
I switched the soundtrack from the advert.
and the results were distorting.
I felt the oil section to be the least successful, with the choice of the Hummer advert not coming off as I'd hoped. The images were simply not strong enough.
Although the soundtrack was interesting, the vegetarian segment was for me the most successful due to the slightly perplexing nature that arises from showing a slaughterhouse from over 50 years ago and myself eating McDonald's burger. The footage of myself was actually from a film I made over 2 years ago,
Meat for Fiends,
in which I filmed myself eat a veggie burger and fries that were in McDonald's packaging. This is possibly the most reactive film I have ever made, with the responses ranging from bewilderment from friends to anger from fellow vegetarians, and even a hug from my father, who has always wished I would start eating meat again.
The purpose was to garner a suspicion as to my intentions for the film.
The final product ended up more experimental than I'd imagined.
With the film losing its intended simplicity, what was lost in clarity was made up.
The alienating effect it gained, I didn't realise it was at the time what I was really making a film about, was my feeling of distance from the world.
Task 3. My third film.
Vote Romney. Experiences speaking about politics and getting the feeling that people weren't being earnest.
We live in a pick and mix society
Where people choose the moral that fits in the way of life at particular times.
discard any arguments that may point that they are part of the problem.
At a party, I experienced two people arguing about marijuana.
Narrow points of view.
They were both in contradictions.
Arguing over
Free will and choice.
I think we're all contradictions by nature, and this is not a bad thing. Yet sometimes individuals seem to
Deliberately or unknowingly deny this, so they do not suffer bruised egos. The American election provided many similarly ludicrous moments
just discard it all and laugh at how stupid the world's political system is.
Falling ourselves over fiscal cliffs. They have footsie and all the money that has no real physical being.
Sit and watch a government massacre 60,000 human beings.
We go wild about an election even though we know politicians are full of bullshit, so I tried to make an animation showing this stupidity. Rick Ross and Lil Wayne, the US rappers, became my characters. I've researched them both quite thoroughly, as I was studying them for an essay.
Following the repeated watching David Lynch is done that, I just started drawing.
Creating the story as I went along. A dry style
Crude jokes of Spartans.
as a reflection of how I was seeing entertainment and media today, for they are one and the same.
I inserted wild statements.
Cannabis causes seizures.
Crazy levels of fear-mongering.
Which could be seen in the election that was simply lie. Huh? Dumbness was a large dosage in my film, but it wasn't a stupid film. I was aiming to be very frank towards how I feel we are being lied to by those in power and the rage I felt in the lack of action. We should confront these problems, realise the majority are the same boat, and not be blissful in ignorance. I felt there was something very liberating in drawing the cartoon by hand. I have almost perverse pride in remembering the physical and mental difficulties that have come with drawing the same characters repeatedly with the smallest differences.
Immense respect for animation artists. The effort they put in is really not recognised enough.
I used less than 10
sound clips for my story.
The repetition adding to the lo-fi nature. Never has editing been so relaxing, nor have the mistakes so embraced, for I felt their beauty lay exactly in the simplistic aesthetic. Task 4. Seemed the most natural. Film I produced for the module.
I'd finished Twin Peaks the night before, and Dale Cooper had a big influence on me. The joys of positive thought.
Much like Lil B does.
Bless Dale Cooper, Free Tibet, came to me. I took inspiration from all over.
Songs, films,
The Israel-Palestine conflict.
my parents, cartoons.
The right to self-determination became a key issue within the film.
However, I was pulled to Tibet by Agent Cooper.
Like I was grappling with big subjects through my own small mind frame.
The script flowed out of me. I started imagining visuals that would fit certain quotes, and that night made the first film that would be projected. The next day I woke up
with a strong sense of clarity and purpose.
And an urge to create. I went for a walk and ended up in a charity shop where I bought an old floral dress, a SpongeBob figure and a small globe.
I had an idea to project the film and act in front of it as a type of leader who would write the manifesto.
But my voice just didn't have the gravitas desired.
I rewrote my script backwards, split it into 3 sections and translated the middle into Farsi.
After a few attempts, I managed to record a version that I felt reasonably happy with. I then recorded various footage of myself in costume in front of my projected film.
Reading out the script and reacting to the words.
I entered the film into 2 festivals.
Hampton's Human Rights Film Festival and the Bristol Radical Film Festival.
Unfortunately, I placed outside of the top 4 in the Roehampton Human Rights Film Festival, which wasn't surprisingly, but slightly disappointing. I haven't heard back from Bristol, but I sure remain hopeful.
Looking back upon guerrilla filmmaking, I think it can only be rivaled by audiovisual criticism in the level of impact a module has on my film education.
It'd be wrong to suggest that I just learned about film over the duration of the course.
I've learned from my classmates,
My lecturer,
fight for filmmakers on limited budgets,
and a whole lot more. Above all, I've learned a whole great deal about myself and how I look at things and how things look at me. And I've found out that I can feel as close to a boy in the Philippines
or made a character solving a murder or a director under house arrest
as I can to those who surround me.